Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. It's Monday morning. Brent and I just finished up spot welding together this center section, which is for a 61 E-type coupe that has a welded-louver bonnet. And most welded-louver bonnets also have welded flanges. So what we've done here is the original was wrecked. Someone had really bashed it all, I think a body shop bashed it in all around the power bulge. And then at some point in the past, the car was repowered, so there was a big hole here that had been badly welded up. The center section was just a little too far gone. So what we did was we bought a replacement center section. You've probably seen some previous videos. I wasn't real happy with the quality of that, but we ended up doing so much work to it that I kind of overcame that. The biggest problems with that was that the louvers had the wrong profile. They were in there too close to the power bulge and they were crooked. But we had to cut them out and put these in anyway. So, like I said, we overcame that. It's actually a really nice piece now. These louver panels and this rear main support are the originals from his bonnet. The skin here is that reproduction piece, and then the flanges are all pieces that we made here. Now the flanges are not just your normal flanges that instead of being glued are spot welded. They are wider, they are bigger, they have different dimensions, and so these are an exact reproduction of those. And then, since you're going to spot weld them on, we have to very carefully shape them so that they fit this skin exactly. When you're gluing, you just need it to kind of be in the ballpark. But with the spot welder, it's got to be exact or you're going to really pull that skin. So this is just how the factory did it in 61. Like I said, Brent and I just finished this up, and I can tell you right now, the reason they quit doing this is a painstaking process. We have about maybe 6-8 hours with the two of us spot welding this stuff together. It is nerve-wracking, it is frustrating. You're working with the biggest spot weld thing we've got to get in deep. It's aggravating. We were laughing. It's a marriage ender for sure. It's not something you want to do with your wife. And so when you get it done, you've got the spot welds all over the place, and what happens is it will pull a little bit, and you can see on this part, I've block sanded this. So it's just slightly, and I don't know how's the lighting on that. Is that all right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, these here are just slightly pulled in, but like, see, this one here is pulled in deeper. And so what the factory did, because they weren't using filler and they weren't going to lead all of this, the factory came along with a hammer and dolly, and they had like a spade hammer. And you can see right in here, they beat the hell out of these things on every spot weld. That was, can you get that? Yeah, you can see. And see, I moved the spot weld over there. They beat these things and then sanded them with like a DA sander on the top side. You can see that when you look at old factory photos, and it actually thinned the skin out quite a bit. That adds to the problem of these things rusting really bad under these flanges because they're grinding this skin paper thin so they don't have to put any filler on it. Now, I have gone along, and on this rear support and the louvers, these spot welds, actually not on this little section, but otherwise in this section here, they are exactly where the factory spot welds were. And somebody on one of the Facebook forums was talking about how when they glued these, they actually had a little piece of metal welded here in the later ones, and it was spot welded here, because again, they're trying to get away from all that work. And then they spot welded it just along here and along here. Because this is in the flat section, it's easier for them to do that hammer and dolly work and grind it down, and then otherwise they just put glue in here. Well, what happens is the glue comes undone, this pops up and no longer follows the contour of the bulkhead. And you can see it's a little mashed up. I still have to fit this, cut it, change it. But here you can see where I have put the new spot welds exactly where the old ones were. I'm a little OCD, So it's hard for me to put these things in there as sloppy as the factory did. So in this case, I just followed exactly what they did. You can see here it's a little more even. It looks nicer. It's a better hold. And so what we're going to do next is I will come along. Some of these are fine. Some I will do kind of that factory treatment, but I won't do it like this. I won't bash it with a spade hammer. I'll just come in with a slapper and a dolly. Like for example, right here, this is a very tricky curve. And so there are some twisted spot welds in here. There were 2 or 3 spots on here where we got a blowout on a spot weld or the thing moved. It's very hard to hold these in place, and you can see how I have my marks here exactly where I want them. And so there's a couple little things I have to doctor up. You will see that on this one, which is the hardest one to do, I did cheat and run screws right through the skin. I know it's a sacrilege, but we'll weld those. I'll pull the screws out and weld them up like a little plug weld, sand them down, it'll look beautiful. You know, there's 3 holes in there. I've had to weld up over 80 dent puller holes in a bonnet before, so it's not that big of a deal. So that's what we're doing here. You can see that here's the fender. It's also all done up. You've got the 3 flanges here. Even the back is spot welded all the way across. And these were originally glued on. This was actually an NOS Series 2 fender. It was perfect for this. You can see where we converted it to Series 1. We cut in the turn signal indicator thing. I still got to put those little brackets on there. But then back here, this big flange is usually stepped here. So it's spot welded on the bottom, and you can see I did a little double spot weld just like the factory. It's spot welded there on the bottom, but then it kicks up and they've got the glue under here. So we had to pull these off, blast them, get them all cleaned up. This all has the weld through primer under it. And so our next step is to clean this up, doctor it up, and then we will prime everything with 2 coats of a 2-part epoxy primer. Then we'll assemble it and fit it to the car. So that's how you build a welded louver center section. I made it sound a lot simpler than it is because the amount of hours it takes to get it this good is ridiculous. But when the car's done, these early cars have got to be done right. You either have the right bonnet or the wrong one. If you have the wrong one, it's going to really knock the value down. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.